Sweet. So now we're in a live room here. In the studio. In the studio, ho. In the studio. Let's see. What am I looking for here? Fish 2? Yeah. That seems appropriate. What's up, Fish On with Chris? How are you today, buddy? How are you doing? Just waiting to see what else I need to do here and make sure this is all up and running. Oh man, it's been a long day. Been a long day. What's good, Clayton Lester? How are you, buddy? Doing well? I actually just got off work, probably around 5 o'clock. I work 9 to 5, so I can't be more blessed than that to have that type of job where I can go do that stuff whenever I need to. And I can get off at a decent time, too, so I can't be mad at that at all. Can't be mad at it at all. I'll give it a few more minutes here and I'll just go ahead and start. This will be uploaded to the channel too, so people can come back and watch later on. But I'm just going to go over a few things about like, on my personal tips on catching more fish at pay lakes and stuff, and like what I feel like it's important to do and what you need to do, early on in the season or before you even go to a lake if you want to get on those fish. So I'll give it another minute or so before I really start getting into it here. Something I've been wanting to do for a while, just haven't had the time to. Haven't had much time. Well, I got 6 viewers, so I'm just gonna go ahead and rock and roll here. So first off, thanks guys for tuning in. The channel's starting off really good this year. I've been getting out as much as possible, and trying to get to these lakes as early as I can. As you saw last time, the last few videos, I went to Sky Lake and fished a Channel Cat tournament, and even went to B&J's and a few other lakes. So, yeah, it's been nice so far. That was a tank you caught last year, man. Thank you, Gregory. It really was, man. That's something I'll never forget. One of my best memories for sure. And I'll get into talking about that a little bit more here coming up, but. First off, I just want to go over a few tips on what I think is important to know if you want to catch more fish at a pay lake. So this goes out for people who are new, even the experienced people. Some of these things like I didn't realize until I started doing pay laking a little bit more seriously. So one of the first things that I've realized over the past few years of pay laking that's a big ordeal, as my number one tip probably, is the do your homework. So when I say do your homework, other than besides getting on their Facebook page and looking to see all the recent fish that were caught, you're going to have to do some more homework than that, okay? These lakes are built and designed specifically however they were designed, okay? So that goes for Paradise Extreme, Raccoon Ridge, Daily Double. They all have some type of design to them that the fish kind of figure out as soon as they get in the water, and then that makes them feel comfortable. And that's where you're going to find some of these fish, especially during the peak times of the summer, right before the lakes close or right as they open, okay? So I just want to give you a quick example of what I'm talking about. So Paradise Extreme, for example. Everybody knows that Paradise Extreme is literally just, a big lake. It's long, but it has a trench all the way through. So I have a hard time imagining what a trench would look like because I'm thinking it's real narrow, but in reality it's not. So I did my homework. So when I started to try to fish Paradise Extreme, which I don't do too often because it's so far of a drive, I really had to think about where would these fish probably be at this time of day. And I'm trying to get on the fish. You're trying to find the fish, okay? So I actually did some homework, and I actually got on their Facebook page and scrolled all the way back to when they just dug that lake. Okay, so I'm going to pull up the photo here and show you exactly what I'm talking about. So this is Paradise Extreme right when they dug the lake. Literally, just as you can see it, okay? Now, when I saw this, I'm like, holy crap, because I didn't realize how wide the trench was. And this was good to know because as you can see, the trench gets wider right here, right across the way from the pipe. So then I knew when I got to that lake, this is about right here as soon as you walk up the hill to the left, that's where you're trying to be. Okay, because that's the biggest part of the trench. All those fish are going to be laying up in there, and that's where they're going to be at. So, and then you have to figure it out as, okay, I found the trench, but how deep is it? You can figure that out when you get to the lake, okay? You can adjust your depth and figure out where where the bottom is and where you need to be. So doing your homework like this can really benefit you in, catching a lot of fish because you can actually figure out where these fish might be. You can predict it, and if they're not there in that spot, you know exactly all these other spots on the lake. They could be at the end of the trench. They could be on the right side of it. They could be in all kinds of different places, guys. So do your homework, figure it out, and put a little time and effort into it. And then once you figure it out the first time, it's the best feeling ever, okay? Once you go in there and you bang some fish and other people are like, what are we doing wrong? Well, you understand the lake. You know what the lake has, and you know what it has to offer, so you know where the fish are. I'll give you another example real quick. And I don't care to share this info because even though these are lakes that people I know fish, and sometimes there's tournaments and stuff there, I really don't care, okay? I'm just sharing my knowledge with you guys so you guys can understand. So I'm going to show you one thing about Raccoon Ridge is why I love Raccoon Ridge as the lake it is. So I'm going to show you something about that lake. So I did some homework, okay? So when I first started fishing Raccoon Ridge, this lake is about, as you can see, it gets wider as it goes towards the end. So right along this right side here, I'm not sure if you can see my cursor, I hope you can, there's a dam wall, okay? So I'd like to troll this dam wall, okay? It's about 3-4 foot deep, okay? But about right there where that first power line is, right here, okay? All of a sudden it drops off big time, okay? Literally about 10-11 foot. Okay, it's a big drop off, and those fish love to lay on that drop off, so it's a good spot to troll. Now, as I fished that lake years and years, I started to move down the lake a little bit, and I ended up realizing when I threw out where this yellow spot is that I've highlighted here, when I threw out there, it would always stand up. I mean, I'd be, 7 foot deep, and my bobber would stand straight up. Okay, that means that I'm on bottom. And I didn't understand why I was on bottom. So I did some research and even kind of, asked the owner, like, what's going on here? And he told me, he said, well, there's an old dam that runs from here all the way across the lake to the other side. He said, so originally the lake used to be like that, but they extended it out. So it finally made sense. It finally clicked. I was like, that's why, my bobber's standing up right there. So I did my homework and figured that out. And then you use that to your advantage because if these fish aren't on this wall right here, if they're not, trolling this wall and they're not hitting, you might as well move to where the damn wall is, okay? You can fish on top of it. You can fish right on the back side of it where it drops off to the deeper spot. They like that spot too, okay? It's really cool when you do your homework, guys, because you can figure it out. Biggest thing I just got to say is learn these lakes. Take everything you can and just use it to your advantage, okay? Being a paylaker, people dog us and stuff, but, people think you're just going to walk in and catch a 63-pound fish, which you just don't do every day, okay? It takes a little hard work and grit. Sport Fest in the trench at Extreme. It really is. I mean, it really is, okay? Now, I personally not had too much luck at Extreme, but I'm still learning it. I'm still trying to figure it out, all right? So that's my first tip, and I feel like that's important to get across. So now, on to my second one. I got some footage here back from when I went to Shorty's, okay? And Shorty's, I never fished it before, and it's a brilliant lake. He's got 3 really nice lakes. And I just want to talk about this day. So if I remember it correctly, it was like I don't know, mid-April, and sorry, I need like a water because I was talking for so long. Whew. So it was about mid-April. It was pouring down rain, pouring. Okay, so people always say when it rains, the fish always end up in the shallows. Okay, because they're chasing all the bait fish. It's where, just like they're out in the river, that's what they do. So when we got to not extreme, shorties, we decided to fish over towards the right side, which is a little shallower. Okay, so I found bottom, and I knew it was going to be a grassy bottom. It's a grassy bottom in this lake, so there's no point in fishing like night crawlers or something like that because you're going to deal with a lot of bait fish hitting your bait. So I went ahead and just switched to some cut bait, and I found bottom, and I brought it up 6 inches from the bottom. Okay, so just in case those fish were laying on the bottom in that shallows, that's, start from the bottom, work your way up. Okay, so this tip right here is about depths. You got to change your depths to find the fish, guys. So I started at the bottom. We were there for probably, I don't know, 10 minutes, and I already had a fish. I mean, and they were hitting it so fast, like I didn't even realize it. So I'm going to play this video. Watch this orange bobber here, and it just gets smoked. So we're sitting there talking, and it just like that. So, I mean, and the crazy thing is, all these other people are fishing off to our left, and they're not catching anything, but these fish were mainly in the shallows, okay? And we started off on the bottom, and that's where I was catching them. So once I found that right depth, I just kept it there. I moved my other pole to that depth, and it was like a heyday. I mean, we caught so many fish off this side over here where it's real shallow, and it was really awesome. So I had a fun time, and I just think it's important changing your depths. And another thing I want to talk about is when you are fishing in spots that you're unfamiliar with, so lakes you're not familiar with, be observant. Look around the lake and see what's happening, okay? So by that, if you see a guy over to your left who's banging fish left and right, you're probably going to be eyeballing to see what's he using, okay? What is he doing? How deep is he fishing? And why ain't you catching fish, okay? So that goes into the story about the 63-pound fish. So, we were catching these little fish on the right side, and, which is okay. It's okay to have a 9-fish ticket any day of the week. But once I saw that these guys across the lake were banging some fish, we started to look around, and we could see they were using shad, okay? So we did not have any shad whatsoever. All right, so this guy on the other side of the lake of us comes and gives us a whole bunch of shad. He's like, they were dead shad in the bucket. He's like, here, take the shad. I don't need it. So we were like, oh, we were excited, like kind of pretend like we didn't want it, but we really wanted it because that's what they were hitting on, better than anything. So we ended up moving down just a little bit, and I was fishing in the middle of shorties. So if you're on Lake 1, okay, in the middle of it, it's real grassy, okay? So it kind of, as soon as you cast, it just drops down, and it goes right back up, kind of like extreme. It's got a trench in the middle, okay? So it's real grassy down there. So like I said, we weren't trying to fish with any night crawlers or anything like that, so any bait fish would really mess with our stuff. So I end up finding bottom, casting out, and I couldn't catch anything, okay? So I just kept bringing my depth up about 6 inches every, 15 minutes. I wasn't catching a fish. Well, I finally got into like the 7-foot range, okay? And I had just put on a fresh piece of shad, and I mean, boys, it was literally like, I don't even know how to explain it. This fish tried to walk with my bobber, and as soon as I set the hook, it came up out of the water. It was just so crazy. But, I mean, and the thing is, that big blue could have been anywhere in that lake, but all the conditions were right, okay? He was the right depth, right bait. Everything he wanted was right there in front of him, okay? Now, and I mean, that goes for any fish. If you put what the fish wants in front of him, in the best way, a lot of the other fish are going to be, keeping that same behavior as in depth. So I want you guys to remember, if you're not catching fish, change your depths every so often. And then once you catch a fish at that depth, leave it there. Okay, leave it there. And then if you go like an hour or two without catching them, change it up, okay? All right, so and then my third tip that I want to get into is when you're fishing, what all did I miss? I was working on a rod. So, that's funny. Oh, so you do custom rods, Outlaw? And guys, another thing is this is going to be posted to the channel after I get done. So you guys can go back through and watch and stuff of what I'm talking about here. So I was just going over my, most important tips I feel like are important in my opinion. My first tip being that you guys have to do your homework on the lake, figure out where the good spots are before you even go. And then secondly is changing your depths when you're fishing, okay? All right. So my third tip, I want to talk about bait. Okay. So when it comes to using your guys' bait, you got to figure out, base it off what time of the year this stuff is going on. Okay. So right now in mid March, okay, you would not be using a live bluegill. If you are, I wish you luck. I hope that literally a fish decides to eat it. But guys, it's so early right now, okay? So these fish are just waking up. You know, the water's still cold. They're not going to be moving a lot. So you guys got to really think about baits that are soft, okay? So when I went to Sky Lake, you know, literally was a sword fest. I didn't bring any type of live bait whatsoever. It was all soft bait, okay? Night crawlers, chicken, shrimp, I mean, any of that stuff that's kind of stinky, has a smell to it, and it's soft, okay? And another thing is I want to talk about is combining your baits, okay? So don't just throw just don't throw straight night crawlers sometimes, okay? Now, straight night crawlers can be fire. I'm telling you, they can be, okay? But sometimes you might have to switch it up a little bit. So throw like a piece of chicken tip with a night crawler, or a crawfish tail tip with a night crawler. You know, mix your combinations up, okay? Because you're going to have that one fish that just can't resist it, all right? And then you never know, because I went to a tournament one time, and everybody there had all the baits, but they didn't have any shrimp. And I was the only person with shrimp, and I mean, I tore the fish up. And that's like the coolest thing is when you got something, you know, that other people don't, you know, and I ain't sharing either, but I mean, I feel like that's important. Can you do a breakdown on what baits you throw and when? Cold water boats versus warm water. Don't forget baits depend on lake patterns as well. Everywhere is different at different times. That's what I'm saying. So, I mean, and yeah, so I mean, and you can catch fish on live bait around this time. Every lake is different. But like I said, so you just gotta think, you know, and think in the mind of a fish too, you know. Sometimes that's kind of weird to say, but I mean, these fish are just waking up. You know, they're not going to be wanting to be chasing a whole bunch of live baits. They're going to be sitting still, and whatever comes in front of them, they grab. All right, and I'm going to do a breakdown about baits. You know, so when it's colder, like I said, you want to do softer type baits, guys. Shrimp, all kinds of stuff. No one was catching them. I threw on live and hit a 35. It was my only bite night. Hey, and that's awesome, Fishing Harry. I mean, that's awesome. And I mean, like I said, every lake's different, and you never know. That blue just might have wanted some live bait. I mean, you might have put it right in front of his face. So, I mean, congrats on that 35, dude. I know how it feels fishing that long and not hit anything, and then you change it up just all of a sudden and bang one, dude. That's awesome. And like I was talking about, when it's cold, guys, softer baits. Okay, now when it gets to midsummer, okay, any type of live bait is going to do well, guys. Biggest thing are mullets, creek chubs, bluegill, warmouth. I would say some other baits that I use, but I don't want to get arrested. I feel like I'm just going to say I've used crappie heads sometimes off of lake. You know, people that I know that catch crappie and don't want the heads. I will gladly take the crappie heads because I mean those are just the one baits that sometimes their fish just hit them. They hit them really well. But you know, when it comes to the summer, you want to use some live type bait, and don't stir away from the baits that you use during the cold time or early season, like the shrimp and the crawfish tails and stuff. Guys, those fish are still going to love that stuff. All right. So you know, the biggest thing I just want to get across is, you know, do your homework on the lake, figure out the structure, figure out what's special about that lake. Why do the fish stay in one spot, or they're stacked up here? Or why is there a hole here? If you find a hole, you know, work that hole, fish that hole, figure out how the fish are using it. Okay. One thing about Sky Lake that I figured out, you know, I couldn't find any pictures of Sky Lake before, but it was really just a channel cat tournament. But everybody was fishing out in the middle of this pond during the Sky Lake channel cat tournament, which they were catching fish. But in the last few hours of the tournament, the fish kind of shut off. Okay, so the fish were moving in the lake, and they were going to a different spot in the lake, probably because of all the pressure of all the bobbers and baits. But I started fishing just 4 or 5 feet off the bank and was banging, you know, fish because they had just come towards, you know, the edge of the lake. But also, Sky Lake has a ledge all the way around it, so these fish are laying on the back side of the ledge there. And when you cast all the way across the lake, you can hit a ledge on from both ways. So I would cast out 4 or 5 feet and bring it back, and then right as soon as it probably met up with that ledge, that's when I was catching those fish. So once I figured that out, I kind of understood the lake a little bit more. And you know, and the biggest thing is don't be afraid to ask either. If you got a guy next to you that seems like he knows the lake, ask him, hey, where's a good spot to cast at? Like I'm new here. I'm trying to figure it out. Some of these old timers guys, they will really give you some good advice. I have a good group of friends. Walk Talk Fish, Angling Real Life Outdoors. Those guys have helped me out on some of these lakes that I traveled up there to fish with them. So don't be afraid to ask. Okay, we're all new at paylaking at a time. So once you get it figured out, and then don't be that guy who doesn't share a little information to the new guys that show up to the lake. Okay, I think that's really important. It brings people back, and it just leaves a good impression on some people. So I just want to keep this brief. It's about 20 minutes in. I appreciate you guys actually coming in and chatting with me. That's awesome. And we're going to get some more videos out. So just like I said, do your homework on the lakes. Okay, change your depths, use the right baits at the right time. And then, guys, all the rest of the stuff is kind of personal preference. There's no lake better than any other lake, okay? They all hit at different times. It just really depends. So keep those things in mind, and I promise you will catch more fish at these pay lakes. And if you guys have any questions whatsoever about a lake that you know that I fish regularly, don't be afraid to ask me at all. Any more underwater footage coming this year? And I'll tell you something about that. Fishing Harry, when I finally got that footage, it was like I don't even know, it was like the biggest relief off my shoulders, because that's something I've always wanted to do. But yes, we are going to get some more underwater footage. I figured out how to rig the Go Fish cam up correctly, and we're going to be throwing a bunch of crazy stuff at you guys this year. I'm really trying to spice my channel up. I'm trying to be different. I don't want to be like some of these other channels. Not saying that they're bad channels at all, but I just want to give that content that kind of stands out above everything else. So yes, there will be more underwater footage, and we're going to try to throw out as many good ideas as we can, and different type of content to keep people interested. And I'm going to branch out and fish a lot of different lakes that I haven't fished. As you can see, like I've never fished Sky Lake before. 2-hour drive for me, but was totally worth it. I had a blast. As you can see, I just went to B&J's a few days ago. Was the only guy there. There was nobody else on the lake. I know that lake fairly well. It's not too much to it. Other than that, it's just 10 foot deep in the middle all the way through. And basically, I was just casting out there and trolling through there. And then just kept moving my way down the lake, and I ended up finding some fish by an aerator. And that's where I caught that one. And it was a nice blue. Very healthy. But it was off shrimp and night crawlers. So, I tried every bait that I had besides shrimp and night crawlers together, and that blue just so happened to like it. So, it's just something special that you can't even really explain, where you go out and catch a fish in March, and it's a healthy fish. That's all you can ask for from these lakes. But other than that, like I said, guys, keep those tips in mind, okay? And if you have any questions for me, or if I can help you out, when it comes to your rod setup or what you use, guys, that is personal preference, okay? I literally use an Akuma Longitude, which is a surf rod. It's not meant to be swarped on, or to catch 63-pound fish. The rod I caught the 63-pound fish on was not designed to do that. But it was my personal preference. It felt good to me, and it held up just fine. So all those other things you guys think matter when it comes to catching fish, it's just personal preference, right? And when I mean personal preference, we're talking about circle hooks over normal Gamakatsu hooks, or how long your leader is. Some of those things, the fish don't care. They just care about the bait sometimes. So just keep those things in mind. And I'm so glad you guys tuned in with me, and I hope to do this a little bit more. But like I said, if you guys have any comments or questions below, just drop them at the end of this video. It should be uploaded here soon, and I hope you guys have a good one.